It's time for Comeback Sports with Brandon, Coach Perry, and Pat, the shot caller Flaherty. Here we go.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Comeback Sports. We are a weekly sports topic show where we give you 10 sports topics about what's going on, not just across the country, but across the globe and internationally, nationally. A lot of good sports topics we got for you once again this week. There's a lot going on. I am Pat, the shot caller Flaherty, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Brendan, the Coach Perry. Brendan, I know you got a topic you want to kick things off with that's a little bit off of our list, off the grid, but we're going to let you have the floor right now. Brendan, the Coach Perry.
Well, what's up, Pat? I'm glad to join you as always. Just had to put on my light here to get a little extra lighting, so I took off out of the frame there for a second. But I've had a topic that has really been pondering me for the last couple weeks. And every time I see Peyton Manning, I honestly think, would Tennessee have been good if he never went there? If he decided to go to Ole Miss like the rest of his family, would Tennessee have ever been good? Because I can't remember the last time Tennessee was good. And I think it was pretty much the last time Tennessee was good was when Peyton Manning was there.
Didn't they win the national championship the very next year with T. Martin? Once Peyton Manning left?
Did they win the championship, or was that against Nebraska?
I think they won the national title. I think they won the national title with T. Martin the following year, or 2 years later, or a year or two right after Peyton Manning. And then after that,
that's still technically the Peyton Manning era, right?
So
he had just left. T. Martin probably was on the team when he was.
Yeah, and you're saying that, because Manning was there, guys like Eric Moulds and other star players with Tennessee were attracted to Tennessee. So those guys who went to play with Peyton Manning were there for one more year, and then they won the national title. So no, I see what you're saying, because we've always talked about the big name coaches in college football, and you're a football coach yourself, so I'm not putting you down either, but maybe it's the big name quarterbacks that bring the players and not always just the big name coaches for those top recruits.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like I said, it's really one of those things. And I think you're right about T. Martin. And T. Martin was a great scrambling quarterback himself. But it's just man, and I'm not trying to knock Tennessee here. I'd like to see them get back on top. I think they have a great history there and an amazing stadium right there on the river. But I've just been thinking that, because obviously you see Peyton Manning a lot. He's a very marketable guy. He's always on TV himself. And I love Peyton Manning, but I'm just man, his college career was so great. And then I'm just man, who was the next great Tennessee star after him? And it might even be a guy they didn't even play that much, named Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Alvin Kamara has been the best NFL player since Peyton Manning at Tennessee. So that's an interesting question there. And, Tennessee and also the University of Texas, Longhorns haven't been that great over a decade, probably since the Vince Young years. So that's a good question. I'm sure we'll get into a lot more college football, especially later in the summer. But interesting stuff there from the coach, as always. So, folks, we're going to get into our 10 sports topics, as we always do here on Comeback Sports. But before we do that, check out the bottom of your screen right there. Those are our Twitter handles. Mine right there at the bottom of my screen, and then the one at the bottom of Coach Perry's screen. Make sure you go on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. We tweet out the links to these shows all the time, a lot of different stuff. We also respond to some things on Twitter about some of the topics we discuss on the Comeback Sports Talk Show. Also, if you go to YouTube, make sure you subscribe to Comeback Sports. It can be one of your subscriptions, so every time we have a show and every time our great producer Ben Kudo cuts up the different videos from the show, it'll feed right to your YouTube channel. And then finally, also, eventually we're going to have our phone number up on the screen as well. You can call that phone number, call in live to the show, and you can ask us a question and let us know what you're thinking about some of these sports topics. So it's always a lot of fun to hear from our fans. I hope we hear from one or maybe several here tonight. But first up, topic number one is the big fight we've been talking about for a while. That's Poirier versus McGregor, fight number 3. Brandon, we mentioned this a couple of months ago about how this could be a massive fight, how McGregor might have even lost the second fight to really promote the third fight, to make it more of a fight that everybody wants to see. Now it's here, and this is a massive fight coming up on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, another quick question. Do you know the price yet?
I do not.
Because I'm like, I kind of want to order it. And here's the thing I was even talking about months ago. McGregor like rope-a-dopes everybody into making a boatload of money. And so it's like he won that first fight going away, clearly was dominant. Then in that second fight, Poirier just looked like he was kind of the dominant one. It was like a whole reversal of roles. But I honestly, like I said, I had called it. And I'm telling you, go back. I wish producer Ben could pull it up for you right now. I called it saying I think it was just a rope-a-dope tactic so he could get this third fight and make a boatload of money and then win the fight on top of it and have won the trilogy fight, the trilogy series between Poirier. And so I really think if there's a fight to watch between these two, I think this is the one. You generally don't see like a fourth fight between fighters, not so soon at least. So I think this trilogy, you're going to get the best of both fighters. And honestly, I follow Conor McGregor on Twitter. He has been looking amazing with the training that he's putting out. I mean, he honestly looks like he's gained another 10 or 15 pounds just in muscle right now. And I mean, I just saw him killing out miles on a mountain bike on the road the other day. So he's got his cardio up. He's got his power up. And we all know he's a skilled fighter. I'm looking to see Conor McGregor win this fight, and I'm looking to see him win it by strikes. And strikes is his main thing. That's his go-to thing. And I think in the second fight, he was a little too much on the defense. He was a little too much on the defense. When he tried to come inside, Poirier was hitting him with those leg strikes. He clearly said he was going to be ready for those leg strikes this time. And I think we're going to see Conor McGregor be a little bit more aggressive. And like I said, I expect him to win this fight by strikes. And I don't know. I don't think it's going to go to the distance. So let's say maybe, I don't know, with championship rounds, it's 5. If it's a championship, if it's not a championship, it's 3 rounds. So I don't know. If it's a championship, it could go 2 or 3. If it's not a championship, I think look for McGregor to end it in the second round.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. I mean, McGregor's been mostly successful knocking guys out in the first round, especially. I mean, 19 of his 22 wins are by knockout. 17 of those by either knockout or submission have happened in the first round. So McGregor likes to go to work early, and that's how he usually beats guys. So I think if Poirier gets out of the first round, gets deep into the second round, he actually beat McGregor last time by knockout in the second round. So both these guys, I think, are going to go at it early. I don't think this is going to last more than 3 rounds, I would say, tops, unless they really, are kind of seeing the same thing and saying, let's, milk this as much as possible and let this fight go on, for as long as possible. But, once people subscribe to the fight, it kind of doesn't matter. But, it'll be interesting to see what they try to do here because they both have kind of similar styles in the fact that they like to get going early and try to knock guys out early. But I saw a lot of written up about how this could be one of the most anticipated fights in UFC history. And, we talked about, third fights in the past trilogies, especially in boxing with Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, and then even a little bit further down the line, but not even now in the distant past, Gotti and Mickey Ward, their third fight. The third fights are never usually the greatest fights, but because there's so much anticipation and because there's 2 guys that have beat each other once already, it's just already just this awesome fight that people are looking forward to. Sometimes the beginning of the fight's kind of awkward. You see that in different trilogies too. So it's just going to be so many stories and things coming up about this fight. So I think this is going to be an awesome fight. This is going to be great for the UFC. As if they didn't, they needed to get any more popular. This is now a huge main event for the UFC.
I think this is going to be huge for both fighters, obviously. I mean, Poirier has never really been a big household name, but he's set to make a lot of money off these 3 fights. And I think, honestly, that's the name of the game, right? And that's the bottom line. They're professional fighters. They want to get paid the most they can so they can kind of retire from this combat sports and, go on with the rest of their life. Conor McGregor has obviously been doing that at the max, almost like a Floyd Money Mayweather. You could call him Conor Money McGregor, to be honest. And I expect this to be a big fight. Like I said, I'm really thinking about doling out some cash. But honestly, if you look to the left here, I didn't know it, but honestly, the POS, Greg Hardy, is on the ballot, and I didn't know that. And if anybody knows about Greg Hardy, go back and look at his history. I'm not a fan of that guy at all, and so I'm a little disappointed that he'll be getting some of these pay-per-view dollars because, like I said, the guy is a POS in my opinion. I wish I could say that. I don't know. Can we say that on here?
We'll stick with POS for right now. But I hope he gets his ASS kicked in that fight. Yes.
I agree to that. I really hope. I'll be rooting for Tuivasa or whatever that guy's name is to beat up on Greg Hardy. But yeah, we all want to see the main event, obviously, Conor McGregor versus Poirier in the Trilogy fight. And like I said, if we'll be covering it, we have to cover it because I called it that it was going to be a rope-a-dope. So we're going to have to cover the outcome. But look forward to it. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe now because we'll be talking about the outcome of that fight. But let's move on to topic number 2. It's a big topic, and it's definitely an emotional topic around the country. Sha'carri Richardson getting disqualified from the Olympics and from the Olympic team for a failed drug test for marijuana. So what do you got on this, Pat?
Okay, so this is incredibly complicated. I hate that this is a rule that athletes can't smoke weed. I mean, we've talked about this a million times before. It's so much better to smoke weed than it is to take a Percocet, take a Vicodin. And a lot of athletes in the past have done that for pain. It's an addictive substance. And weed isn't, marijuana isn't. So we also found out that Sha'carri's mother passed away. And to deal with the emotional stress that she was going through, obviously, she smoked some weed. She fully admitted it. So I think we all appreciate her character in this situation. But she did break the rules. Those are the rules. You can't smoke weed before a race like that. And that's the rules of the Olympic trials. That's the rules of the International Olympic Committee. And you can't break the rules. It's terrible for her. It's terrible for the U.S. Track team, too, because she's awesome. We mentioned before how, she was one of those runners that we were going to talk about as being one of those characters that we wanted to see in the Olympics. And one of those athletes that seems to always emerge in the U.S. Olympic, in the International Olympics, and which athletes from the U.S. are really going to shine in the Olympics. We really thought she was going to be one of them. And of course, for her, all these athletes, trained for 4 years to get to the Olympics. And then this one, most recently, they've been training for 5 years because it got postponed because of the pandemic. So feel horrible for her. They can't just bend the rules, though, for just her. And that's the tough part about U.S. track and field and the U.S. Olympic Committee is in regard to the International Olympic Committee. So it's a tough situation because she got tested positive outside of the race. She didn't test positive on the day of the race. It was, I believe, a couple days before, and then the test results came back later, I think is what happened. And so what could have happened, because that was the case, she only got suspended for a month. So she could have been named to the relay team, despite having that 100-meter trial vacated because of the positive test. But then the U.S. Track and Field organization said we can't, we have to kind of keep this. If she's suspended for one, then she's suspended for the other. They could have named her to that team. They decided not to, just out of, just making sure that everything's on the up and up with the rest of the track team. So, that was a possibility as well. Just a tough situation across the board. And I feel bad for her because she lost her mom. And again, I think it's crazy you can't smoke weed if you're an athlete, but unfortunately, those are the rules right now.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, I kind of understand both sides here, to be honest. So I'm going to give a little view from both sides. But first off, what you're saying with the, being left off the relay team, I think that was USA Track and Field just saying, we don't want to answer all the questions at the Olympics of why she was left out of the 100. So we're just going to leave her home. And then, I get it. That's going to give the girls that are on the relay team just to be able to focus in, not have to answer all these questions of why Sha'carri's running on the team. So I completely get that. And I completely get people saying, hey, it's the rule. It's written in there, it's still federally illegal. So, for our track and field team and, I get it. She's like a mentor and all that stuff. I get it. I totally get that. She's a professional athlete. One of her tweets that she brought up is she said, I'm human. And first off, so we all make mistakes, we all maybe have the bad timing. Like you said, she had just lost her mother. I feel so bad about that. So we don't know how she was feeling in that moment. I do know this. It's not a performance enhancing drug. So it definitely does not help you run 9.87 like she does naturally or what she's physically gifted to do. If anything, it would slow her down. And that's what it is. It's technically a downer. So if anything, it would slow her down. Her reactions time would be slower. So it's not a performance enhancing drug. So I think that's the biggest thing. So here's my thing. I think the rules need to be changed. I think they should have been changed a long time ago. This is a country that's been changing over the last 10 years, over the last 15 years. Honestly, marijuana is legal in 35 of 50 states, whether it be recreationally or medically. So soon it's going to be legal in all 50 states. And even the federal law, they've been looking at rewriting the law on it and reclassifying it to a lower classification as far as substances go. So it's just really one of those things where I'm like, what message are we sending right now when we're having one of our best athletes stay at home for a failed test? And like you said, instead of taking like Percocets or anything like that, any opioids. And then on the other side, you've got, blue collar people making billions of dollars off of marijuana in America right now. It's like I said, it's completely legal in a lot of states, including the state that we're broadcasting from right now. Massachusetts has recreational and medical marijuana. So I don't know. I don't agree with it, to be honest. And like I said, I know personally, for me, looking from it from a personal side, I was really looking forward to seeing her run against Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce. I talked about that multiple times on this show. So it's really disappointing because we pretty much just gave the gold medal now to Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce. There is nobody else in the world that can match this woman. Jenna Prandini, who's actually going to stand in for Sha'carri Richardson, is going to get her doors blown off. I'm a big Jenna Prandini fan. She went to the University of Oregon, but she's just not as fast. She's not as good. So at this point, expect Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce from Jamaica to be the 3-time Olympic gold medal champion. And so it's like almost an event that you don't even really need to watch anymore. I'm still going to watch it. A lot of people are just trying to boycott the Olympics and boycott track and field now. I don't know if you've heard that, but a lot of people are because they don't like this and they don't like how she's getting suspended like that because she's a fan favorite right now. I think they're seeing a lot of blowback. So I think any momentum that they gained from the DK Metcalf incident is out the window at this point. They've completely lost it. And track and field is now going in reverse. And I'm not blaming Sha'carri for that one. I'm blaming USA Track and Field and these old school rules that just haven't been changed with a changing country. But lastly, one thing I'll bring up about it is, hey, USA Track and Field, marijuana and alcohol are pretty much on the same level. And in this state, in 35 of 50 states, they're considered the same substance, okay? I guarantee you they will have alcohol at the Olympics. And I guarantee you Tokyo will have alcohol at the Olympics. I guarantee you USA Track and Field has raised money at events with alcohol present and selling alcohol to people. So it's really, like I said, it makes them look like a fool to me, to be honest. And here's one other big thing. Michael Phelps ripping bong bowls like a champion, right? In between Olympic years. I totally get it. But I'm telling you, like Michael Phelps was clearly using weed. He clearly still does. You could talk to Michael Phelps right now. He said he used it for his mental, which is the same thing that Sha'carri Richardson was using it for. Here's another Olympic athlete that was a complete embarrassment to the United States in Brazil, Ryan Lochte, who went out, got completely hammered off of alcohol, broke into like a gas station, like assaulted somebody at the Olympics. You get what I'm saying? So I'm just like, this is completely different here. I just don't get it. And it just seems like it's just a totally different standard. And I just do not agree with it.
Brandon, let me ask you one more question. I don't know the answer to this. This is why I'm asking you a lot more about track and field than I do. Is this a rule by the International Olympic Committee, or is it a rule with the U.S. Olympic Committee? I know she tested positive in Oregon, which is actually a state that marijuana is legal. I know the U.S. Olympic Committee conducted the test, but is it a rule for U.S. Olympics or is it a rule for international? Maybe both.
I believe it's a rule for both, to be honest, currently. And I'd have to check on the Olympic standards, but you definitely will get tested at the Olympics. So pretty much everybody's going to get tested at the Olympics, as they should, especially after what Russia's been doing over the last 20 years. Exactly, right? Exactly. So I agree with them testing everybody at the Olympics because you don't want performance-enhancing substances. But I think this was a failed test at the U.S. Olympic trials. So this was a failed test for the U.S. standard. So it's really one of those things where they deemed her like disqualified at the trials. And so that disqualified her from being in the Olympics. So really, it was a United States rule. So the United States could easily take this off. And then, hey, if it's an Olympic rule at that point, then, hey, once you get to the Olympics, you better be clean at that point because, the Olympic Committee's a totally different ball game. They got to decide on their own. And that's an international question at that point. And the United States is just a small piece of that international.
Right. Well, it's like we said, the laws need to change, I think, federally here, where it's across the board. Then it maybe goes into the Olympics and other either professional sports or amateur sports like the Olympics, and then so on and so on. So a lot of work to do in that aspect. Moving on to a more positive topic, sexual harassment with the Washington football team. The Washington football team just had a $10 million fine because of the misconduct and the sexual harassment that a lot of their senior staff and some of their employees, and the way that they treated some female employees and some females as part of the Washington football team. $10 million fine. It's the biggest ever in the history of the NFL. Dan Snyder has just been, in the thick of all these different scandals, and nobody likes him. He's not a good owner of the players. He doesn't seem to be a good owner of the coaches. He doesn't seem to be a good owner of the fans. And now he's got this going on in his own shop. Why? I've never understood why anybody even likes this guy. So, I mean, Brandon, what do you think about this whole situation up in D.C. or down in D.C. rather?
Sadly, I'm not surprised at all. And then sadly, again, this is one of those things of how money talks and how money gives you so much power that this guy can get away with, like you said, being such a jerk and that nobody likes him, yet he still owns the team. He's still pushing people around. He's still being a jerk. He's still leading this atmosphere of, like you said, sexual harassment. I guarantee you there's probably some racism going on there. Guaranteed, look at it, because obviously they had the name, right? This was the former team, the Washington Redskins. He never wanted to change the name. Then when they finally do agree to change the name, he's like, I'm just going to call it the Washington football team. Like, what's the audacity of that? Because he was so upset that he had to change the name of his racist organization. You know what I mean? And I get it. Trust me, I get it. I loved the team going back. I think there's a lot of rich history on this team. Obviously, Art Monk was one of my favorite Washington Redskin players. That guy was unbelievable. If you do not know about Art Monk, YouTube him. You're on YouTube now. Give us a subscribe and then go look up Art Monk's clips. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm just really not surprised by Dan Snyder, the audacity of this guy. He thinks he can buy players left and right. Honestly, big shout out to one of my favorite NFL players of all time, Deion Sanders, who pulled the rope-a-dope on him, got Dan Snyder to pay him like $40 million, played like half a season and then retired, and then got like pretty much all the money. And so it was just like one of those things where Dan Snyder's willing to pay anything. And so some players take advantage of it, and I get it. I think they should, because this guy's an idiot. I personally think. I don't think he should be in ownership anymore. And hearing that he was leading this like sexual harassment type atmosphere and people like didn't want to come to work. I mean, this is the National Football League. This is football. This is sports. It's supposed to be about fun. It's supposed to be about entertainment. You should have fun going to work. I think about that for any job. Honestly, if you're not enjoying it, you should quit or look elsewhere, because, man, you've got to enjoy it. Life is too short. So for these people that have been working for the Washington football team, it sounds like it's not been fun there at all. I'm glad to see that maybe there's going to be some sort of change there now, and that maybe there will be some accountability going forward. But honestly, Dan Snyder kind of just suspended himself from the organization for like a month or two, right? and his wife is running the organization at this point now. So Dan Snyder's pretty much just texting her what to do. And that's not a sexist comment by any means. I'm just saying Dan Snyder's wife has never run an NFL organization, has never been part of this organization. Dan Snyder is still running this organization behind the scenes. So his fake suspension is just kind of pillow talk per se. And this is nothing. So I don't know. Hopefully the NFL takes a deeper look at this. And maybe the NFL can step in and suspend him for his actions at this point and help them clean up this organization. But yeah, at this point, does not shock me with a guy like Dan Snyder.
Yeah, and I don't believe anything this guy says. You know, like you mentioned, he brought his wife in to be the CEO. That's great that you brought a female CEO into your football organization. But because it's your wife, even if she's incredibly qualified, she's not set up for success because now everybody thinks that you're just telling her what to do because you're the owner, you know, in principle. So if what he probably should have done to be taken more seriously is bring in a female CEO from the outside, not someone who's related to him, and just bring that CEO in to run the team. He can still be the owner. He's not going to give up ownership unless the NFL takes it away from him. So bring a CEO in to run the organization, okay? Because clearly you don't know how to run an organization because things haven't gone well since he showed up there. So you can still be the owner, you're still going to make the profits, but hire a CEO from the outside to come in and make sure the structure of that organization is correct. The other thing, too, with this whole thing is it was that not necessarily he was the one making the comments or making people uncomfortable. That wasn't revealed in the investigation, so to speak. But what happened was these women in the Redskins organization were coming to him, coming to the senior staff there and saying this is a problem, and they didn't do anything about it. So, you know, unfortunately, these things happen in the workplace across the country, across the globe. We all want to put a stop to it as much as possible, but, you know, unfortunately, people are human, and these things are going to happen. And the senior staff, the managers, the owners, those are the people that have to put a stop to it and, you know, reprimand the people that are doing it. That's the only way the culture is going to stop. And that's how they failed once again here. So it's a failure of leadership from Dan Snyder and the senior staff with the Washington Redskins. And that's why this is a complete mess. And if you look at the Redskins right now, they had a nice season last year. They made the playoffs. They got this good young defense. You know, they're eventually going to try to, you know, build up the quarterback room there, and they're going to be trying to make a playoff push again. The NFC East is like kind of all over the place. They could certainly make the playoffs again next year. So you have all this good stuff. You know, people are saying maybe they'll, you know, we'll see what happens with the new nickname for the Washington football team. That would have been something new and exciting for the fan base. Then all of a sudden this thing drops because of the lack of leadership from Dan Snyder and his senior staff. It's just, he you know, can't get out of his own way right now.
Yeah, man, give me all that money. I'll show you how to run a football team. And then the last line I'll say is Dan Snyder sucks, man. Let's move on to topic number 4. A guy that we really would love to talk about, a champion, 7-time champion, Lewis Hamilton, re-signs a 2-year deal with Mercedes going forward. And we were all waiting to see when the deal was going to be signed. And it was signed a lot earlier than we thought. And hey, 2 more years confirmed for Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes.
Yeah, I know we mentioned not too long ago, or back in the winter at least, that Lewis Hamilton had only signed that 1-year deal to stay with Mercedes for this year, 2021. So I'm sure Mercedes was worried that either this could be it or he's just going to go 1 year every year, and they're going to be stressed as all hell to try to re-sign him every single year. Or, you know, what are their future plans going to be if Lewis Hamilton leaves? Now they have him locked up for 2 more years with this extension. And we've mentioned this, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, how Max Verstappen is now pulling way ahead of Lewis Hamilton in total points in the standings for first place. And you're wondering if Mercedes is not punting on the season because they're still going to be top 3, top 2, you know, for the rest of the year. are they sort of punting on the season when it comes to the car technology because of the new rules in the offseason? Are they now gearing up for 2022 and 2023 because with the rule changes, they can now change the technology of their car? That's been their specialty since day one with them. Mercedes' technology has always been above and beyond compared to the rest of the grid. So, now you got Lewis Hamilton locked in for 2 more years. And like you said, I think last week or the week before, now they can find out who's going to be driving with him for the next couple of years as well. The next driver knows that they'll be side by side with Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes seat. So I think things are set up well now for Mercedes. And we thought this year with the way that Verstappen and Red Bull were driving that this could be the end for Mercedes and maybe Lewis Hamilton, but definitely not now. He's locked up for 2 more years. Mercedes still, carrying all that weight they've been carrying for the past, 9 years that they've had Lewis Hamilton. So this is huge for them. Awesome for Lewis Hamilton, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, man, good to see that Lewis is going to be on the grid for a guaranteed another 2 more years. And with the new car and the new car regulations. So it's good to see that we're going to have a couple of champions with obviously Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, and Fernando Alonso, all former F1 champions, still on the grid when the new regulations come out and the new cars. So that'll be exciting. But really excited to see Lewis sign this deal. And it was a lot earlier than last year. So last year during the pandemic, the contract negotiations got pushed out a lot, and then Lewis got COVID himself, and that even pushed back negotiations even further. So they didn't really lock him up for this 2021 season until late until 2020. So I think all of us were kind of saying, hey, are the negotiations for this contract going to go late into the season? And then boom, they come out early in the summer before the summer break and get this deal done a lot earlier than anybody expected. And Toto Wolff and Lewis were just talking the other day saying they got it done a lot earlier than they expected too. And Toto was saying, maybe I needed to negotiate a little stronger. And Lewis said, no, you did a good job. And so it was funny to see those two talking about it, but to have their relationship continue as well, obviously a championship relationship, and it's going to go forward. I think Mercedes is not done by any means. I know Red Bull has won the last 5 races, but Toto Wolff came out this week and said they are bringing updates to the car for Silverstone, and he's expecting them to go 1-2 on the grid at Silverstone. So for a F1 team boss to come out with a prediction like that, I mean, he's got to be backing it up, and he's got to know something. He's got to know something that's coming down the line with that car, upgrades to that car over these next few weeks before the British Grand Prix that's going to put them right back into the fight with Max Verstappen and Red Bull. And we've still got a long way to go in this season. So if Mercedes can do that at the British Grand Prix, I mean, it's going to open up some eyes, and I know I will be extremely happy to see that. So I hope Toto Wolff knows what he's talking about, and he always seems to. So I'm expecting to see a 1-2 from Mercedes coming up in the British Grand Prix. But hey, now Lewis is locked into another 2 years. He can just go ahead and drive and focus on the fight with Max Verstappen and focus on this championship. That was another thing he commented about. So now he's going to give everything to the title fight. And he said the fight's not over. For anybody thinking it is, it's not by any means. And so we're going to be in a long haul fight here with Red Bull and Mercedes till the end. But also, like I said, hey, now he's locked into 2 more years with the new cars. And now it says who's going to be the guy that's teams up with him. Rumor has it now is that they might be announcing George Russell over the next few weeks to join Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, where they'll have the all-British lineup at Mercedes, which would be awesome. And obviously George Russell is a young up and coming star himself in F1. And then you got two amazing drivers once again pushing themselves. So hey, Valtteri Bottas obviously had a podium here most recently at the Austrian Grand Prix, but he's got to keep producing numbers like that if he's looking to keep his job, because silly season has already started in F1 and they're already talking about filling his spot with George Russell. But Lewis Hamilton locked into another 2 years at I want to say Red Bull, but obviously that's the team we're fighting. Another 2 years at Mercedes. And this is another thing, too. Now his contract goes hand in hand with Max Verstappen, the guy that he's going to be fighting for these next couple of years as well.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that. You wonder if Bottas, now that he knows that Lewis Hamilton's extended to 2023, would want to leave Mercedes because he's sick and tired of being second fiddle to Lewis Hamilton, because he has shown his frustration with that in the past, having to be a good teammate and stuff like that with Hamilton, despite his success on the track as well. Moving on to topic number 5, we're going to switch to baseball, and it's Shohei Ohtani making history. Shohei Ohtani is the first player in Major League history to make the All-Star game as both a position player and as a pitcher. This guy has been nonstop in Major League Baseball this year. He's the best attraction for Major League Baseball here in 2021. He's been unbelievable at the plate. He's been great as a pitcher. You can see now he's an All-Star. He's an MVP candidate. This guy, it just doesn't stop with this guy, Brandon.
I agree. I mean, we keep having to talk about him every week because he keeps making history, or like hitting 6 home runs in 6 games, or, I don't know, man. This guy is amazing. Showtime, Shohei Ohtani, the young Japanese superstar that we all love watching. He just keeps delivering and just keeps giving us content to talk about. And so honestly, makes history, right? Makes Major League Baseball history being voted into the All-Star game as a pitcher and a positional player. All right, let's just call it a slugger straight up, because that's what he got, voted in for. And so I think personally, let's end the talk now of him being as good as Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth is maybe as good as Shohei Ohtani, because Ohtani is the man. And like I said, I've been telling people that he's better than Babe Ruth. There's no way Babe Ruth was throwing as hard as this guy is. And hey, Babe Ruth was just this big, overweight guy with a dad body, hitting balls out of the park because he was the best of his time. Shohei Ohtani's playing in an era of athletes, of amazing athletes, of, the sports science era, I call it, where everybody's a really great athlete and is in great shape. And he is the best right now. And he is leading the home run, leading the majors in home runs, hit another one today off our team, the Boston Red Sox. And even in this series against the Red Sox, has a few RBIs, a home run, has got a W on the mound. I think, man, just what can he not do is really the question. Like I said, I really want to see him in some catcher's gear behind the plate, calling a game, because he's just so talented. I really think he can do it all. And it would just add to his story if he could just play every position on the field. Because I really think if he wanted to, I think this guy could do that. He's that talented. He's that good. Like I said, I keep saying he's got the movie star looks. He's 6'3". He's built like a wide receiver. I mean, this guy could play multiple sports if he wanted to. He's one of the greatest athletes of our time right now. And I mean, wow, we still got so much more to see of this guy. He's just really scraping the surface. But for him to break Major League Baseball history this early in his career, like I said, wow, man, what is he going to do next? And like I said, end the talks. This guy is possibly the greatest baseball player of all time right now. You honestly have to put him up there with the likes of Willie Mays and Ken Griffey Jr., in my opinion.
It might be a little early for those comparisons, but I do like his trajectory. It's certainly going this way, up and up and up. Like you mentioned, he hit another one today. He's now got 32 homers. His OPS is well over 1,000. And on the mound this year in 13 games, he's 4-1, 3.49 ERA. Just against the Red Sox, like you mentioned yesterday, he started the game as a pitcher, 7 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs given up, 4 strikeouts, 0 walks against the Red Sox, who have a very good lineup. So that's an impressive stat line. Yesterday went 1 for 4 with an RBI double and a run. Today, 2 for 4 with a solo homer and another run scored. So this guy's been awesome. He's terrifying when he comes up to the plate. As a Red Sox fan, I see him up there. I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do right now. This guy's going to sock a monster homer. He's just one of those. He's probably the most feared hitter in baseball right now. We always talk about, in baseball, how certain players are just feared when they go up to the plate. Obviously, Barry Bonds in his prime, however that was helped. But you talk about Ken Griffey Jr., you talk about some of the guys in the past. like a Babe Ruth, like a Willie Mays, when they come up to the plate. I remember Red Sox fans, you can go back to the 70s, Jim Rice was a feared hitter with the way that he used to mash baseball. So Ohtani's just like that. He's been so good. He's been so fun to watch. I really hope this helps baseball's popularity. It's a weird space right now for baseball because you've got the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals. We're going to talk about both those in a few minutes. But, hopefully baseball can ride this Shohei Ohtani wave of popularity and success into the All-Star game. It's going to be awesome to watch him pitch and hit in the same All-Star game. He's in the home run derby. It's going to be his 2 days. It's going to be 2 days of Shohei Ohtani, and I think that's great for Major League Baseball.
I agree. It's definitely great for Major League Baseball. A lot of people are going to be watching that game. I think I will be, and I don't even like baseball. I routinely say that on here. I don't like baseball, but I love Shohei Ohtani, and I'm starting to watch more baseball because of Shohei Ohtani. So he's bringing the eyes to the game, and that's always good. And, yeah, he's going to make history in Major League Baseball's All-Star game, so we'll all be watching it. You talked about him being a feared hitter against the New York Yankees. One of the pictures, he ended up having a balk called against him because he just didn't know what to do. He wanted to go into his pitching motion, but then he's like, I don't really want to try throwing to this guy. I'm going to make a mistake. And then he ended up getting called for a balk. So that is the fear that he puts in pitchers right now. And, hey, I know you didn't like some of those comparisons so early, but here's another one for you. How about putting him up there with Teddy Ballpark? Teddy Ballpark, Teddy Williams. I think he's up there with him as well because this guy is, like I said, he's amazing, and he's bringing the eyes to baseball, and people love him. So that's why I'm putting him up there with some of those guys. But let's move on to the NBA Finals, topic number 6. The NBA Finals, Suns versus the Bucks. Game 1 went down. The Suns got a W, 118 to 106, I believe was the number there. And man, they looked great, and it was a great game. But, yeah, man, the Suns just keep it rolling, right? Suns just keep rising.
Yeah, the Suns look good in Game 1. Giannis came back for Game 1, which I think was important for the Bucks. He actually looked decent. I thought he was going to look a lot worse. Definitely not 100%, but I think he's a little closer to 100% than what a lot of people thought he would be. But you look at this, I just think this is Chris Paul's year. I know it's just Game 1, but, I mean, the guy had 32 points, 9 assists, 4 rebounds, shot 63% from the field. Oh. So this has been a great postseason for Chris Paul. We got a caller on the line right now, so we're going to go to this caller right now. So whoever you are on the phone, thank you so much for calling in to Comeback Sports. Why don't you give us your name and where you're calling from?
Hi, my name is James Merlin. I'm calling from Massachusetts.
Oh, that's great, James. We are in Massachusetts right now, so good to have a Massachusetts sports fan on the line. So, James, what is your question for us tonight?
My question is, what do you think about DeAndre Ayton being the first person in the NBA Finals to get 15 points and 15 rebounds in one game since Tim Duncan in 1998?
Wow, that is a great question, James. Thank you so much. James, are you still on the line?
My question is, what do you think about...
Okay, we'll answer his question first. So, I think with DeAndre Ayton, I mean, he's been a huge factor for the Suns so far in this postseason, and just the way that he's been playing, and he's sort of the X factor right now for the Phoenix Suns. You see the way that he can score the basketball, he can rebound, he can block shots. He's been so good, and he's sort of become that kind of player that can do whatever he needs to do out on the floor. He doesn't have to score 30 points to be successful with the Phoenix Suns. So, and that's kind of like what Tim Duncan was like James was saying, is that, Tim Duncan didn't have to score 30 points to have a successful game in the postseason. So it's a good point. I don't think he's as good as Tim Duncan, James, but very solid performance from DeAndre Ayton so far. Brandon, what do you think?
First off, James, thank you for calling in. We love it. And I love that this young man knows his history. Comparing him to Tim Duncan, the big fundamentals. Good, man. Big shout out to you, James, on that one. But yeah, I think DeAndre Ayton has had a great season, and he's really proven himself as that first round pick. And I think he's having a big series here. And yeah, having that double-double always helps. especially when you got guys like Chris Paul and Devin Booker putting up all the points. But yeah, I mean, DeAndre Ayton he's having a big series. Look for him to help close it out. I got the Suns winning it.
Yeah, I do too. I think this is the Suns here. It's going to be very interesting to watch them down the stretch of the NBA Finals, but still a lot of games to be played. It's still only game one. James, are you still on the line with us, buddy?
Yes.
Awesome. James, let us know, number one, how old you are, and number two, what's your favorite sport?
I am 10 years old, and I am between two sports, basketball and baseball.
Awesome. Awesome. Two excellent sports. So who do you think is going to win the NBA Finals this year?
I think it's going to be the Suns.
Yeah, I think
Devin Booker is going to, and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton combined on a single team is probably one of the best teams you could get in the league.
That's a great point, James. I think you're right. I think that's a really good 1-2-3 punch for the Phoenix Suns, and they seem to play well together, those three guys. Both Chris Paul at the point guard, Devin Booker at the shooting guard, and DeAndre Ayton at center. So really good point, James. So thank you so much for calling in, James, and we really appreciate it. And make sure you call us some other time again on another show, James, here on Comeback Sports.
Okay.
All right, James. Have a good night, buddy, and thank you again for calling.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Bye.
Take care now. I had to get James off the phone because he's going to take our host jobs. You know, if we keep letting him go, that kid's probably going to be a broadcaster in no time. I'm worried about my seat on this show as of now. Anyway.
Awesome. I'm worried about it as a coach. I mean, he was talking about, lineups and stuff like that. So that's a very smart young man that knows his sports right now, and he's got a bright future.
Absolutely. He was talking about DeAndre Ayton, 22 points and 19 rebounds in game one of the NBA Finals. And he was talking about how Tim Duncan, the last person to do at least 15 and 15 was Tim Duncan. So great point by him. Moving on to topic number 7 is Josh Gordon. He's trying to get reinstated to the NFL. He just applied for a reinstatement. It's going to take a couple of days, I believe, before the NFL makes the decision. Josh Gordon has had several suspensions and has had to leave the league for a lot of substance abuse issues that he's been battling for a long time. Brandon, what do you think about Josh Gordon giving it a go one more time, trying to get back into the NFL?
I mean, if I'm Josh Gordon, why not? Why not keep trying if they're going to keep letting me try to get back in? Because, I mean, first off, it's a young man's game, so you can only play so long. And so if he's still got it left, why not keep trying? Because eventually it's going to be gone. He'll have to retire no matter what. Every great player retires. Time waits for no man. And so why not? Why not keep trying? And I hope Josh Gordon can get back on the field. I think it's one of those things that when Josh Gordon is around an NFL organization and the right NFL organization in football and his teammates, I think that's when he's doing a lot better. I think it's when Josh Gordon has free time, he gets away from the facility, and he maybe has that, that bout of depression. Remember, this young man has talked about that he's battled substance abuse with depression. So I think that's really one of those things where when he gets away from the facility, he might get depressed sometimes. And then he looks back and he goes back into that old, habit of being Josh Gordon of old. But I'm really rooting for Josh Gordon. I think he's got an amazing talent. And when he can get on the field, I mean, he lights it up just in his years at Cleveland. But even when he got on the field here in New England, he had some bright moments, had a couple of really great catches and some really big games. So I think if Josh Gordon is healthy, physically, mentally, and is in the right place in his life right now. And rumor has it, he's passed all of his drug tests over the summer and so far in 2021. So that's a really good sign for him going forward. And, if I'm Roger Goodell, I don't know, give the kid a shot, give him another chance, especially if he's passing all of his drug tests. Obviously, if he fails, you can just suspend him again. And you know what I mean? So it's just really one of those things. Give the kid a chance again. And like I said, it's not just because he's got some great talent. I've heard a lot of great things about Josh Gordon as a person. I've heard that he's a really great teammate, a really good locker room guy, and he really doesn't give you any problems. So it's just really one of those things where he's just battling some demons, and I think we all are. And so I really want to see Josh Gordon succeed, just like I want to see a lot of other people that are battling demons kind of get those demons off their back and, and reach for the sky and just do good and succeed in life. So it's just really one of those things where I'm rooting for Josh Gordon, and it's just, I think it's a 50-50 moment where anything could happen at this point. But like I said, I don't see why not. Keep trying Josh Gordon, and hopefully it succeeds, and hopefully he can get back on the field, and hopefully it's with the right team, the right set of coaches that can and help this young man going forward.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, like you mentioned, over the last 3 months, they've been testing Josh Gordon randomly, and he's passed every drug test he's taken over the last 3 months. So he's clearly trying right now, but that's always been the case. I mean, like you mentioned, we saw him here in New England. The Patriots used to have him go, not every player does a press conference after the game in front of the big media scrum in the media room. It used to be Brady, and then they'd have, Devin McCourty, the captains, and then they'd have Josh Gordon go up there because they liked the way that he handled things. They knew he could handle it. And I think they were also, I don't want to say testing him because he was a veteran at that point, but kind of showing him, hey, we're okay with you doing this. We believe in you. But unfortunately, it didn't end well because he eventually had to get suspended again because of substance abuse. The guy clearly has, issues with substance abuse. We hope that he continues to fight those demons and deal with the issues. And it's really tough for anybody to deal with something like that. I think the biggest problem with Josh Gordon coming back in the NFL, not a problem. I think the toughest part's going to be that there's only going to be a few NFL teams that might want him. Not because he's not talented, not because he doesn't have high character, but because we saw it with the Patriots. That at one point they were really leaning on him to kind of bolster the wide receiver group in New England. And when he got suspended, the cupboard was kind of bare with the wide receivers with New England. I believe Edelman was banged up at that point. They didn't have the tight ends that they used to have. Gronk had retired, so they didn't quite have the weapons offensively once Gordon left. And, so if you're an NFL team that really needs a receiver to really bolster that group, I don't know if you want to go after Josh Gordon. I think the teams that'll go after Josh Gordon are teams that already have a couple of weapons, whether it be in the wide receiver group and then maybe as tight ends. And then maybe you can add him to really, elevate that group. And then if he does get suspended, well, you still have those other players to carry your offense because unfortunately, just because of the nature of what he's going through, you just can't count on him to play 16 games or even count on him for a full season. And it's too bad because the guy is incredibly talented. Like you mentioned, seems like a stand-up guy. We mentioned that he used to go to the podium for the Patriots media scrums and did a great job with that. And he continues to have this, to battle these demons with substance abuse. But when the guy's right, I mean, you mentioned back in Cleveland, back in 2013, I remember he was unbelievable. I mean, I remember watching him against the Patriots. I went to the game when they played the Browns. He looked like a tight end. I thought he was that big. And they threw him a bubble screen. He took it like 60 yards for a touchdown. He's a freak. He's one of those incredible wide receivers, incredible athletes. When he's right, he was one of the best receivers in the league back then. He's 30 now. He's probably not as quick. He's been through these issues, so that probably slows him down a little bit too. But he can still be a productive wide receiver. It's just there's only going to be a handful of teams I think that can really go after him this offseason if and when he's reinstated.
I think you're 100% correct with there. You bring up a great point with that, and like I said, I think you're right. I'll bring up 2 quick points before we go on. I think, like I was going to say, man, maybe if he gets with the right quarterback, it'll help out. But, man, he played with Russell Wilson and Tom Brady. So, that's a counterpoint to my own point being like, well, that doesn't work out. But I honestly think this is one of those things, just like with Sha'carri Richardson, the rule needs to be changed and updated. And we've talked about this on the show. Instead of NFL players having to use opioids, they've gone to marijuana. And you got guys like Percy Harvin in the past that have, said they played every game on marijuana. So it's just really one of those things where I've talked about it, like, where's the testing? And it's so off base. They catch some guys and other guys go under the radar, and then they try to make Josh Gordon look like an example. You know what I mean? So it's just really one of those things. I think the league needs to update themselves with the rules and with the state laws that are changing here. But it's definitely something, hey, it's one of those ever-changing, evergreen moments, and it's going to keep changing. We'll just keep on top of it and keep covering it, right? So let's move on to a great topic. Topic number 8, Luka Leading his team to the Olympics, man. For the first time in the country's history, Slovenia is going to the Olympics in men's basketball, and that's thanks to one man. And hey, I know his teammates don't want to hear that, and I'm sure the coaches don't, but it's thanks to one man, Luka Doncic.
Yeah, Luka was awesome in that championship game. The Slovenian team defeated Lithuania to get that automatic bid into the Olympics. Like you mentioned, I believe it's the first time in their country's history. They won 96-85 in that finals game. Luka had a triple-double, 31 points, 11 rebounds, 13 assists.
Wow.
And it's funny, when I heard that Luka had an unbelievable game, I was almost underwhelmed by that stat line because we're so used to seeing Luka get a triple-double in the NBA. So, But just an amazing performance by him. It's almost like he's with the Dallas Mavericks, too, because I feel like he doesn't have enough help there, with the Mavs. And now he's in Slovenia, and he's like, oh, I've been doing this all year.
Yeah, this is easy.
Like this. So this is par for the course for Luka Doncic, right? So very cool for the country. And he looked elated when they won that championship game. Sometimes a guy he's a superstar in the NBA. He's a top 10 player. And the fact that he was psyched about getting Slovenia into the Olympics shows that he's, and you see his teammates lift him up right now. That's a great tweet that we're showing right now.
They should.
Shows that his guys love him there as well. So, sometimes we think these pros that play in the Olympics, they don't care. This doesn't matter. It clearly does. These guys love playing for their countries and the competition and doing things that other players haven't done. And, Doncic needs to continue to grow as a player, and I think he does need to kind of learn a little bit more. I know he's a great distributor of the ball, but he needs to learn a little more about how to use his teammates. And I think when you see something like this is a step in the right direction for Luka Doncic.
Yeah, man, Luka is the man. I love this guy. He's really good. Like I said, I loved him since he was playing in the Euro League, and then he comes over here and is just tearing it up here as well, and then still tearing it up on the international stage going into the Olympics. So, like you said, nothing new for him. It's just an everyday occurrence for Luka Doncic. He's just that good, and I honestly think he's going to be a MVP in the league coming up over the next few years. I think he's really that good. I think he has it in him. It's just, when is it going to happen? Is it 4 or 5 years from now? I think so. Honestly, I think he's got it in him to be that good, to be the MVP of the league. But I think you bring up a good point with how much it meant to him, and you've seen how happy he was and elated at the end of that game. And it was good to see that he still cares. He still cares about these moments, and he cares about his country, and he cares about representing his country and bringing them to the big stage, a stage that they've never been on. So, and to be the one to do it, I mean, this just makes him, I'm sure already he was a hometown hero, right, in Slovenia, but now he's turning into more like a god there, I'm sure, because he's just that great. And he, like I said, this is another young superstar just scratching the surface of what he's capable of doing. And a triple-double, in an Olympic qualifying game, yeah, that's just an everyday occurrence for Luka. And it wouldn't shock me if he puts up some triple-doubles in the Olympics. And we've talked about it being like, hey, other NBA players, especially the United States, will be waiting for him on that stage. And they all know what he can do. And so, they'll be ready for him. And some other guys that were saying, hey, they're ready and if they're passionate about playing for their country is Damian Lillard and Jason Tatum for the United States team. So I think it proves, like you said, even though they're all professional athletes, that this is still a moment that they do care about, they prepare for, they're looking forward to, and hopefully they're going to put their biggest and best foot forward on this world stage. But yeah, man, look out for Slovenia to make a couple of waves, at least in the stage play of the Olympics, with Luka Doncic leading the way.
Yeah, well, we've been mentioning that we want to have characters coming into the Olympics because we want, Olympic appointment viewing. That was always the case with Usain Bolt, Michael Phelps, like you mentioned. Now with basketball, I want to watch the Slovenia versus USA game. Now, the United States will probably, be fine against Slovenia in that one, despite having to go against Luka. But I want to see how Luka fares against those guys. As a Celtics fan, I'd love to see Jason Tatum cover Luka Doncic for a little while, and I think that would be good for him. It's just one of those things where I'm going to try to watch that game if I can. just because Luka Doncic is playing for Slovenia. When in the past, I probably wouldn't watch Slovenia, even if there were some role players on that team from the NBA, some NBA role players. But now that it's this guy that we've been watching for a couple of years now just tear up the NBA, it's going to be another appointment viewing situation for people watching the Olympics. So that'll be a lot of fun. Something that was not so fun over the weekend, unfortunately, topic number 9, the goaltender for the Columbus Blue Jackets, Matisse Kivlenieks. I am so sorry if I'm butchering his name. Just 24 years old, died in a fireworks accident in just outside of Columbus, Ohio, actually a suburb of Detroit in Michigan. Horrible situation for this young man, horrible situation for his family. Brandon, what are your thoughts on this situation that happened on July 4th?
Well, yeah, I'm going to call him by what his teammates call him, and that's Kivy. And I mean, it was a tragic moment to lose Kivy, and that's what a lot of his teammates are saying, that like, he was that young, bright star that was like everybody liked on the team, and they were calling him, that, hey, I'm going to miss you, brother, and RIP, brother. And that told me a lot about the type of person he was, and not just being obviously a great NHL goalie and a young star up and coming in the game, but that his teammates really loved him and adored him and loved being around him. And that's the biggest part of the game. I always say with sports, man, sports are fun, but it's the relationships that we build in sports that really, last forever. And that's what we're always involved in sports. And that's the greatest part about sports. And so his teammates are really hurting right now. So our thoughts are out to them and obviously out to this young man's family, but really a tragic accident with fireworks to be hit with a mortar shell in the chest. And they said that he was just sitting in a hot tub, off to the side. So this is just a really horrible accident gone wrong with explosives. And it's really one of those things where I'm not a fan of fireworks at all. I'm personally glad that they're illegal here in Massachusetts. I wish they were illegal across the United States, that only professionals could handle them, because you have moments like this. And this could have even still been a professional crew, and they might have still had an accident. I know even most recently, I forgot what beach it was here in Massachusetts, one of the fireworks trucks blew up, and that was a professional crew doing it. So it's just with explosives, anything can happen. And man, life is so short. To see this young man lose his life to a fireworks accident is just tragic. Tragic for the NHL, tragic for his family, for his teammates, and just for everybody right now. So this is a really sad story. And like I said, my thoughts and prayers are certainly out to his family and to his teammates right now.
Yeah, no question. This is really rough. Like you mentioned, for the Columbus Blue Jackets. The other tough part about this too is it is at the home of one of his goalie coaches. Now, I'm not sure if this gentleman is a coach with Columbus or if it's his private goalie coach. I would imagine it's the latter. But this coach's daughter had just gotten married, so they were having this big celebration in just outside of Detroit. For this huge family party. He's hanging out in the hot tub. They're doing fireworks because it's the 4th of July, and then this happens, and it's just tragedy on top of tragedy in a time when 4th of July, especially this year's 4th of July, where we're all able to hang out again now that we're getting through the pandemic and we can see people, and a lot of us are vaccinated, and we can do a lot of fun things. And, this was really the first big holiday that everybody could get together here in America, and we're outside, and it's the weather wasn't perfect here in Massachusetts, but it was good enough. And, we're all able to get around. And then something like this happens. It's just not that it would ever be good timing, but just the timing's horrible. He wasn't the starting goalie for the Blue Jackets. He was kind of one of those goalies that would come up to the NHL and go back down to the AHL. He was kind of a tweener so far in his career, but only just 24. So you don't even know how good of a player he could have been. But that's secondary to the fact that he lost his life. Just such a rough situation for him, for his family, for the people at the party, who I'm sure were devastated. And I know there was 911 calls to try to save his life, but they weren't able to. And it just a brutal situation there with that goalie from the Blue Jackets. Really tough.
Yeah, no, like I said, this is just a tragedy all around, and hopefully a tragic accident that we hopefully never see again in our lifetime. But our thoughts and prayers are certainly out to his family his teammates, and to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and to the whole hockey world, because it's sports, they become tight knit, whether it be, the football world, the basketball world, or the hockey world. We're all in it together. So our thoughts and prayers certainly go out to those people. But let's move on to some brighter days. And topic number 10, the Tampa Bay Lightning looking to repeat, right, as the NHL champions. And it just seems like, man, Tampa Bay is trying to make a run at all these championships across the board, right? But in NHL, they've had one of the best teams over the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. So this is nothing new for them. But do you think they're going to be able to pull it off?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, they're up 3-1 in the series. They're actually playing Game 5 as we speak. So Tampa Bay, I mean, I would imagine that they're going to win tonight. I don't see how they don't, but they still have 2 more games to try to do that if they don't win tonight. But they're in Tampa Bay for this one, I believe. So I think they'll defeat the Canadiens tonight. I think if they do win, a lot of folks are going to be asking, which Stanley Cup final championship was more impressive? Was this year's run more impressive, or was last year's run more impressive? Because they beat the Stars 4-2 in last year's Stanley Cup final. And so if they win tonight, it'll be back-to-back Stanley Cups for Tampa Bay. I know Bruins fans don't like to hear that after what they did to the Bruins in the second round last year. But, I think this year's title is actually going to be more impressive. We saw it in the NBA this year where, they had the bubble season last year in both the NBA and the NHL. And everybody said, well, that championship's kind of wonky. They're in a bubble. They're not traveling as much. They're not doing this and this. Everybody was kind of in it together on the same playing field, playing for the same thing. All those teams were kind of in the same spot, both the NBA and NHL. So I didn't feel like that season was as crazy as this season has been. Because if you look at both the NHL and the NBA, the schedules are condensed. There's more games in a shorter amount of time. There was a quick turnaround from the bubble season to this season. I think this season is even tougher, especially in the NHL. Because you think about how tough a Stanley Cup playoff run is and how guys' legs are just, screaming at them at the end of the season. And then we always hear about whenever a hockey team is knocked out of the playoffs, then all these injuries come out. Like all these guys played with a torn labrum, like Tuukka Rask, or some other players who need to have their knee scoped, or certain different things, different ailments that they have to take care of. So I think this particular season for Tampa Bay is actually a more impressive Stanley Cup run if they do, in fact, get it done here in 2021, just because this has been a crazy season. So, and how quickly this season started after last year's Stanley Cup run. So if they can do it again this year, which it looks like they will, this is very impressive by a Tampa Bay Lightning team that is now becoming one of the hierarchy organizations in the NHL.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, because I don't really want to, because I'm a Bruins fan, but they're becoming really one of the better organizations in the NHL, one of those teams that is consistently putting themselves with a chance to be able to win the title. And here they are again. So they've built a really good roster over the years. I feel like over the last 5 or 6 years, they really have been one of the best teams in the NHL. So I think they're going to pull it off. I think they're going to bring another title to Tampa Bay. And man, they're looking good down there, and they're looking strong even going into next year. But yeah, I mean, their front line has been pretty good this year, and they've always had good goaltending. But I think this is really one of those things where I think this year the championship will be more impressive. I think because last year with the condensed divisions, especially, you weren't playing really everybody. You were only playing a handful of teams. So you really got kind of used to playing those teams, and you got a good look at them. This year, back to playing everybody, the divisions are back to normal, and the travel's back to normal. And it's well, maybe not even normal because it's more condensed with more games because of the short turnaround, like you said. So I think it definitely will be a more impressive championship this year based off of getting back to those factors. And it's such a physical game, hockey is, just like football. So like you said, the grind, getting through the whole season, and they've been really grinding away their opponents right now. They're doing that exact same thing in this series, and I expect them to win it and bring the title home back to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, the same. I think they're going to win it tonight. I just think they're primed for a Stanley Cup championship once again. Right now, games in the second period, there's about 15 minutes left in the second period. No score so far, so we'll see if Tampa Bay pulls that out or if Montreal we'll try to extend this series another game. Like we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, Bruins fans are like, which poison pill do I take? Do I root for the Canadians? Do I root for the Lightning? Some people are saying Canadians, which I don't understand at all. I don't get it. I have respect for the Lightning. I don't want them to win Stanley Cup championships, but I have more respect for them. Are you seriously, is a Bruins fan going to root for the Canadians?
No.
What?
No.
So no way, man. No way, man. So we'll see what happens tonight in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch down the stretch. Folks, that's going to do it for Comeback Sports here again this week. We got a lot of sports in today, a lot of different varieties, because the Olympics are coming up and also because of everything that's going on with the postseason and also with the All-Star Game coming up in Major League Baseball. But again, if you want to check us out all the time on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to Comeback Sports. You give us a YouTube subscription because anytime our great producer Ben Kudo cuts up all the segments, it'll go straight to your YouTube channel, the Comeback Sports YouTube channel. You can just go to the subscription page and see it right there. You don't have to search around for it. And also, folks, you see our Twitter handles at the bottom of the screen. You follow us on Twitter. We'll tweet out some of those clips as well and tweet out some of these sports stories that are going on. We always tweet out the live link before the show gets going, so you can follow us there to watch us live every Wednesday night as well. Brennan, any final thoughts before we sign off tonight?
Big shout out to James for his call. That was an amazing call. We loved it, man, and he really knew his stuff there. And hey, man, I'm still waiting for my first Japanese follower on Twitter. Let's go make it happen, people.
Absolutely. James, great job, buddy. Again, we're worried about our jobs because of how good he was. And some of those stats he was giving us were unbelievable. So awesome job, James, calling from Massachusetts. Thank you so much, folks. We'll see you next time on Comeback Sports. Enjoy the rest of the week. See you later.